Okay, so first of all, the film's called St George's Day. So we've got the Olympics and the Paralympics on at the moment, so there's obviously a lot of sense of kind of national spirit. Is there patriotism in the film? Is that an underlying message, or...?
I think that that was an accident, because the film should have been out earlier in the year, so that was a convenient accident, really. Mm. But I think there's I think that my character Mickey, I think he's got two heroes. One's Winston Churchill and the other's John Gotti. Mm. And I think that they had this sort of it's that generation they've still got that link to the Second World War through growing up, because their grandparents and parents would have been born around that time, and the grandparents would have been hugely involved in the Second World War. And I think particularly with the three cousins, there's that real link to their version of British history, and they sort of identify with that, and that's what I sort of tried to do with the film. It's a sort of culture that I've been outside looking in at since I was 16 when I went to work at Smithfield, and I always wanted to put that culture onto screen, and the language. They've got their own language, these guys. You know, they really have got their own version of Cockney, if you like, and and the opportunity arose, and I thought, God, I should do it. It's time to do it, you know, and that's why I sort of took the leap, really.
And speaking of the language, obviously, you want the film to be able to translate not just to people who live kind of in London, but also to people who possibly overseas, you know, an American audience or a European audience. Did you adapt the language of the film at all?
Well, I did. I mean, obviously, there's some. I think it's quite good that some people go, "Oh, what does that mean?" I think it actually interests people. Yeah, I mean, their nickname for the police is the Gathers, but that's used so many times, it's obvious. And I think that.
Yeah. But the accents are so thick too. I remember when I was doing the ADR, and the guy was American, and he was like, it's funny, but like I can't understand anything you're saying. It's like I got that, but like, what does this?
Yeah, I think
it's quite amusing.
That the music supervisor was an American, and when she first came to see the film, that's the first thing I asked her. I said, "Did you understand it?" But I think, you know, if people are making a film about New York, then they embrace that accent and that culture and that dialogue, and we work out what they mean.
Yeah, of course.
You know, you sort of tune into a New York accent. Funny enough, I find the Boston accent is actually harder to pick up than the New York one, you know. But I think we was always worried about that. I always remember when I first saw The Football Factory, and Nick Love was worried about that people would understand it. But
I think to portray something honestly, you have to have that. And so if people can't, that's their problem.
It's tough. No,
I think but subtitles.
I think generally that you know, I mean, people are used to hearing a London accent on television and on film. So I think it's one that people pick up on. And even sort of when I've been up north and around, you know, people do understand it. You know, and if you're going to make a film about London, then you have to celebrate that language. There's no point in
Would you say it's almost a selling point for the film that is so unique and so kind of grounded in the location?
I'd like to think so. Yeah, the language is always important to me, and when I was sort of writing the script, it was really important how these people spoke to each other. You know, and even
I think it's definitely a selling point.
Yeah, and even, you know, it's even with Keeley's character, you know, it's a use of the English language, which I think is really funny. You know, yeah, that's it really. I think people do. I think people are actually interested. There was a friend of mine who was there. On Tuesday was American. I think every now and again he'd be nudged. Like, what does that one mean? What does that one mean? You know, but
yeah. And Keeley, your character, obviously, it's quite a man-heavy film. I'm not sure if that's
Slightly.
a phrase. So
I think it can be one.
Yeah, we'll make it one. So what's your character's role, do you think, in kind of representing the women in St George's Day?
Well, I think she's pretty much there to kind of show sort of Mickey's lifestyle and how he is. And I also think Frank was actually saying earlier that she's there to show a kind of side of him that you don't necessarily see, because you see him being sort of manly and tough, and with her he's not. He's kind of a little bit vulnerable and sweet, and that kind of comes through.
I think that character was, to me, important because it's the only time in the film you actually see him vulnerable, and he's made the mistake, well, if you can call it a mistake, but he's done something that a lot of middle-aged men do. He's fell in love with a younger woman, you know, and that's life, and that's his, and she's his weakness, you know, that's his, and she can wrap him. This sort of
it shows the power women
gangster.
can have over a man.
Yes, exactly. But seriously, I mean, you know, someone said Mickey's a lab experiment gone wrong away from being a supervillain, you know, and but that there you see his vulnerable side. You know, he's got that. He's fallen in love with her, and that's his vulnerability. And it's the only time in the film he actually questions himself. Is when, you know, when the line when you say to him, "No, you're going to hell," and for a split second, oh yeah, maybe I am.
And you've already said that in the edit you had to take out, it sounds like quite a fairly substantial scene. How much does the film change from your first conception of it to the final edit?
I think that one of the things is that you... Some scenes are exactly as there are 3 scenes in the film that haven't changed from the first draft. They're exactly the same. But it does change. I think you rewrite the scripts again during the edit. I think there's 3 processes. You write a script, then the actors do their version of your scripts. Then you get in, and then which is brilliant. I mean, that's what they bring to the party. And I was so lucky to have such a great cast. And then in the final, like we were talking about just now before the interview started, there's a scene that's been in that script from day one. And just going back in the edit, I thought, actually, that doesn't work. And that's why it doesn't work. Not because she wasn't any good in it. Actors I always remember when my first big job was in a film called Name of the Father, and when I went to the premiere, Jim Sheridan came up to me and went, "There's a lot of stuff in it I've had to cut out, but it wasn't because it wasn't any good, so don't worry about it." And I think, and actors actually, and I always say that to people, you know, when they early on in their
I think
career.
it's whether it makes sense, the story.
Yeah. And that's it, yeah.
But as actors, you want as much screen time as possible.
Oh God, yeah. But you know, it's but yeah, some people do complain about that. But I think people are surprised how much is cut out. You know, when I did Romeo Brass, we shot another storyline because Shane was taking a gamble with such young actors, and so he shot a sort of separate storyline. And when he got in the edit, because the actors were so great, he didn't need that storyline. So I got lots of stuff cut in that film. But you know, it's still a great movie. You know.
And just one final quick question: if you were to make, I don't know if you already have another film in mind, but if you were to make your next film, where would you want to go from here? There's talk of a sequel, which would obviously, because without giving away the story to the audience, would sort of take us across the pond, I think, which I think would be an interesting angle to look at these guys. Yeah, definitely.
And there's another thing, I've got another project that I can't talk about at the moment, unfortunately. It's top secret, but that would be something very different, and it's something also quite close to my heart, so if that goes, I'll be really happy.